Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Dell Tech Talk. This is Bill Acevedo. Today we are presenting Traffic Flow Analyzer. This session will be recorded and distributed. It should be about 15 to 20 minutes in length, and it will be followed up with some questions and answers. So as we go along here, just feel free to type your questions into the chat window, and we'll try to get to those at the end. There's a lot of ground to cover here, and I'm hoping I can keep it to 20 minutes. Okay, TFA. TFA is all about flows. What are flows? Flow is a unidirectional stream of packets, basically. And flows are generally what we call a sampling of network data. And so, for example, you might sample 1 in every 1,000 packets to get information, what you consider statistically valid information that you can extrapolate to the rest of your network. And that's what we show in Traffic Flow Analyzer is the representative data that represents what we hope is your network activity. So OMNM supports most flows, including NetFlow, CFlow, which is Cisco's implementation, JFlow, which is Juniper's implementation, and SFlow, which the Dell switches all support. Generally, all of the flows contain some certain fields that are required for us to gather that information. Things like source IP address, destination IP address, source port number, destination port number, layer 4 protocol type, there's a TOS byte, and then the input logical interface. As we talk about OMNM and flows, we're going to talk about collectors and exporters. OMNM is a flow collector, and a collector is an application that listens on a specific UDP port for NetFlow or SFlow datagrams. Exporters, on the other hand, are a network element that send flow data to a collector. In OMNM, the number of exporters is also set per each license SKU level, and so we do want to talk about that a little bit. First two things, on your license, go to home here real quick and I'll show you on your license, you go to license management, and you go to traffic flow. This is where you're going to see your number of registered exporters. And so you see max exporter count here is 5. You may have more, you may have less, but that's where you look for it. And the main thing to note here is that each SKU level that we ship with Dell and OMNM has a designated set number of flow exporters that you can register. And we'll talk about registering in a minute, but this is essentially how many devices you can have sending traffic to OMNM. In the lower levels, we have around 5. Generally, it's about 10% of the total max total RTM count. So for 10, there's 100, 25 for up to 250, 50, 100 per 1,000, etc. The main thing to know here is that you can easily overwhelm your system even with 5 exporters. And this is because there's configuration options in NetFlow or SFlow that allow you to say, I want to sample every packet on the network. That would be insane. You would completely bog the network down, not let alone your devices. You cannot sample every packet. So you start backing off and sampling like every 1 in 1,000. And so if you have multiple exporters sampling 1 in 1,000, and then if you start talking about 40 gig interfaces that you're monitoring, you're talking about a lot of data that's being sampled. And all that data has to be put into the OMNM database. And so this is where the database and the database capacity and the database performance will be impacted. So definitely recommend that before you start doing any traffic flow that you review these SKU levels. And there are some caveats on here that are noted. In terms of traffic flow, you'll see at the top of this table here, there's a little asterisk here with 3. There's some footnotes on this table that help you tell you some of the caveats around managing your exporters and making sure you're not overwhelming your system, or if you need to adjust your system in terms of maybe going to a database array or faster disk, what to do there. There's also a section in the, this is, by the way, that's the install guide. There is a section in the user guide that talks about Traffic Flow Analyzer in detail with best practices and some other items that are of key importance. So be aware that that is something you need to be aware of. Okay. So how do we get data into OMNM? There's a two-step process, very simple. You go to the device, and all devices are configured a little bit differently, but generally you just say, send your SFlow data to an IP address, and that IP address is OMNM. And so in case of Macintosh devices, I think it's a simple command like SFlow1 destination and then IP. And of course you have to do SFlow enable, and that should start sending traffic. And so even though you're sending traffic to OMNM at that point, OMNM is just going to drop that traffic until you register it. And so what do we do there? We go to resources, and we find our exporter, or find our device that's exporting. We just do a right click, and if it's not registered, you'll get this item here for register. And once it's registered, it will show up as a registered device in the exporter application portlet for traffic flow. But you can also go over here to the columns here and do a show columns, and then just do look for registered. So you see registered here. Just do a show on that, apply. This is also another easy way to see all your registered devices, and you can sort by registered column. You see here there's a bunch of registered exporters on this system. So after you register it, that will have a check mark there next to it. Once that's registered, we will start accepting flow data. Now, it might take a few minutes, 20 minutes, to start getting enough data where we can actually start plotting it and having reliable graphs and that sort of thing. So just be aware of that. So really, a two-step process, very easy to start up and get moving on flows. Let's take a look at our portlets, traffic flow portlets, and just kind of go through some basics here. There's about 8 applications that are available by default. The first one here, top 5 applications. This generally will show things such as SNMP, Telnet, FTP, TFTP, SMTP, a few others, LDAP, DNS, RDP. See a few here, Telnet, some SSH, and so it will show at the application level. Conversations. This is conversations between 2 devices. And so generally what you'll see is a to and a from. And so basically there's one end of the conversation that is sending data to a receiver. The receiver acknowledges it, sends something back. That constitutes a conversation. That's generally what you want to see here. The next one here is exporters. Maybe not. Let's go to traffic flow exporters over here. These are the actual portlets that are exporting traffic, exporting TFA DP packets to OMNM. And so you can drill into each exporter to see which one is sending you the most data. You'll see here we have, for example, this one here on 612 is sending the most data at the current time. The endpoints portlet is a summary portlet that sums up both outgoing traffic and incoming traffic to a single endpoint. And so the one that has the highest outgoing, so you'll see here bits per second in and bits per second out, it accumulates that up into, so that's 49 here. Again, this is a lab environment. There's not a lot of data going on, so we don't have a lot of activity, but this is the highest one, so this is our top of our top 5 here at the moment. That's in comparison to, go down here to the senders and receivers, where a receiver is just bytes in, and so you see bytes in, packets in. Then there's senders, which is bytes out. So these are devices that are sending the most traffic, or devices that are receiving the most traffic. And then we have autonomous system. This is a more of a wide area network type of concept where you segment your network into BGP type areas, and these are typically separated as an autonomous system. And so you can actually get traffic from an autonomous system and see what traffic is going to and from specific autonomous systems. If you don't have any autonomous systems, you will see no name and the ASN 0 for your current environment. Then there's top 5 protocols. This is, again, the protocol information comes from the UDP datagram that we get. And so you can see in terms of protocols, the layer 4 protocol, what's the top 5 there. Okay. Let's dive a little bit deeper into these. Take top 5 applications, for example, and we'll use this as an example of general portlet capabilities. Up in the upper right, you have a the ability to show your top-level graph here in the last 15 minutes or the last 6 hours, whatever you want to see there. But you can easily do that if you want to see the data change there. As I mentioned earlier, flows are estimated data. We can show you the actual reported sample values. It's grayed out here because that's what we're already showing, the actual raw data that we get. If you want us to calculate an extrapolation of what your network would look like if that reported sample data was actual real data, we will calculate that way, do estimated data, and you'll see that the packets go way up. And basically, this is saying that if this were happening for real on your network, this is what it would look like in terms of bytes and packets and that sort of thing. So toggle between those if you like. Down in the table section here that shows the top 5, you have the ability to click on a specific row if you want to drive in further. So for example, you say I've got a lot of SNMP traffic, I want to dive into that. You click that, and this is going to immediately show you the SNMP traffic context for the graphs. And so you can quickly look at and see which ones are the highest. And so you see this 10 gig 052. By the way, this number in brackets is the if index. If you go to this device, the 6.12 exporter, and you were to go to details and look at the if index, you would see that this is the if index number. So that's an SNMP if index that we're talking about. So if you're wondering what that number is, that's what it means. So this is telling us that this exporter on 6.12 on this interface is exporting this amount of data in bytes over here in packets and bits per second, and it's our highest here. A couple things you might notice here is that you'll see graphs that have missing data points. This is a relatively new implementation on our graphs. There's much better performance on these graphs, and so what you're seeing here is the result of either missed data, either it is UDP packet, meaning it's a connectionless protocol for TFA. We either didn't get a packet for a particular interval, for example, minute data. It means that we did not receive the 1 minute data prior to this. If you see a stranded data out of nowhere, like this one down here, it means you didn't get the data before this point, or you didn't get the 1 minute data after this point. So we don't plot it. And so in the past, we would show a dotted line, but it's really more straightforward to show nothing to indicate that we did not get a data packet at that particular time. Okay, another useful feature you might want to know is that you can easily just pick a section on here and expand it out, and you can see detailed data for a specific section of your graph, and you double click to get back. So if I want to see something here, actually I don't want to select everything. You want to select like that. Select that section there, and it'll expand it out for you, and you can see specific information there for a smaller period of time. Gives you a little more granularity, and then so you can double click again to get back. So that's pretty cool. New feature at the top here. Since we drilled into SNMP, you're going to see that we are in the context of application SNMP. You're going to see that you can actually go into protocols and refresh here. And this is actually showing us our bytes, our SNMP bytes. So we're in that context. And so you can see SNMP protocols, you can see the receivers. Again, these are SNMP receivers. And so if you're interested in which devices are actually receiving the SNMP data, this is how you would drill in and find that, or senders. It's pretty useful. Again, you see some of the gaps here indicating that we're missing some data. Again, this is a small network, and SFlow particularly won't send you a packet unless it reaches a certain size. So if you configure it for 256 or 512, if it doesn't reach that size at the interval, it won't send that out, and so you may have a gap here. Okay, so that's drilling in a little bit here. I want to go back up to, I went back out and clicked the home button, which shows all the exporter data for applications. So when I clicked that little home, it took me back out. Again, I drilled into the SNMP before. But let's explore some of these across the top right here. You can change your graph if you want a pie chart instead of the line graph. You can do that, or a bar or column or whatever you want to see there. That's your option. And this time scale here, this is going to show us data for whatever period you select. Right now, it's set to the last 1 hour over here, you see. 1 minute data. And so if you want to see the last 15 minutes, you can, or if you want to see 30 days, you can. Just a matter of clicking that option. Now, the next option here is what data points do you want to see? Do you want to see 1 minute data points, 10-minute data points, hourly, daily, or weekly? Be aware that if you choose 12 months here, and then you choose over here 1 minute data, it's going to try to go back into the entire database and find minute data for every day for the last 365 days, 24 hours a day each day. And there's going to be a lot of data points, and it's going to take some time to draw that graph. There's a lot of data for it to go get. And so just be aware of that. You may want something more like a 10-minute or hourly or even daily over a year would make more sense than 1 minute data. It's going to be hard for you to make sense of 1 minute data over a year anyway. The next option here is the search option. This is a pretty cool new feature where you can actually type in something like a particular protocol, an IP address, and it will go and find that for you. And once you are in that, you can actually go and if there is data, you can drill into it further. So you want FTP data. Now it's showing me application and protocol data. So do I want to see applications, specific type information, or do I want to see protocol information specifically? And so this is showing that it's CFTP. And so you have that ability to toggle between there. But on any that you search for, you have these actions you can do. You can do the top conversations for that particular. You go look at that. This is the lab. There's not a whole lot going on here. So there's nothing there, but oops, go back into that from there. So just be aware of that you can go and you can have that granularity. This is a good troubleshooting thing too. If you see that somewhere that FTP is a particular problem, you can drill in this way and find a little bit more detailed information. You can also do it by IP address. I'm not sure if I have two. Let's just do 192 to see if I can find some relevant IPs. But let me go into endpoints if they have them. Let's say for example, just if I knew that 50.212 was a problem, 212, I would come to this screen, I would put in my search, and I would go as an endpoint here, and I would want to go in, I could go in and look at specific conversations that are going on between two devices to figure out which two endpoints or which two conversations or inputs of the conversation are maybe requesting or sending the most data here. Again, I'm not seeing a lot of data there. Let's go back. But just be aware of that. So same thing with SNMP. This seems to be one we have traffic on here. So you see SNMP here. If I want to drill into applications again, I can do that just to see application data. That's all we have, it looks like. So I can go into here and I can maybe see if we get lucky on this one. Okay, so there's one with data. We see SNMP data, and we see by top 5 conversations here where this data is coming from. A little harder to read on the V6 here, but you see that's coming to, it says to and from here. So down here on the V4, you see it's 2.239 from is coming from 6.214. So you can see immediately which conversations are the most chatty. Okay, so that's something else to be aware of in terms of and drilling into things. You're not restricted to top 5. You can see top 10 if you want to. What it'll do is it'll add, clicking the refresh button, it'll add a little page here, and you can drill into other pages. You can see the bottom 25 if you want to. See the ones that are least chatty. Maybe you're looking for devices that aren't being used overly, and maybe the bottom 25 would show you that. Okay, then we have, again, the ability to toggle between the actual reported sample values and the estimated values. We have a snapshot icon here that allows you to load a snapshot, meaning you'll take a snapshot of this image right here, and you load a snapshot, and then I can just, oh, that's load, sorry. That's if you already have one created. If you save a snapshot, call it snap 1, save it. And if you want to refer to that snapshot at a later time, you can just say load snapshot, and it'll bring that up. You just select it and load up your snapshot. And so then it's a live snapshot, and you can still do all the drilling into it and finding your your detailed information. You'll notice I have top 10 on here because that's the way I snapshotted it. Okay. On the wrench icon, this is another important area to know about. This area will dictate how much storage you need for your TFA data. If you choose to decide to change these from the defaults, for example, 1 minute data is only saved for a day. Now all this rolls up. 1 minute data will roll up into 10 minute data, 10 data will roll up into hourly. And so you don't necessarily need to save all that because that data is being accumulated. So you don't necessarily need to save 1 minute data, but if you think you need 1 minute granularity, if you choose to put in, I want 365 days here, again, you are saving a tremendous amount of data. And so I would refer to the traffic flow analyzer guide in our documentation before you start changing these to retain more granular data over longer periods, because you will start saving enormous amounts of data to your database. It's just the nature of TFA and the amount of data it collects. So just be aware of that here. These are the defaults. You can export to CSV if you like, if you want to do some number crunching or graphing on your own. That's essentially all the buttons that are available on all of your application portlets, all the TFA application portlets. So let's just go back here, rehash here. We're running a little bit long. Go back to the traffic flow page. Some common ways to use your traffic flow. We just kind of went over some high-level ones here. You could just browse this as a dashboard and you start seeing areas where you see large amounts of traffic or conversations. You may say, oh, I want to know what's going on. Why is there? This might be a video application. You want to know who's using that video. And then, as I've shown you, you can drill into that and get detailed information in the context of that particular application. Again, this is for an SNMP example. I can drill into that and I say, where are my endpoints using all that SNMP data or video data if that's the case. And so it gives you real good granularity to dive into specific devices that are maybe doing that kind of thing. And so the next thing is you might see in the context of using performance monitoring in our application, you might get a bandwidth threshold exceeded. And so you'll get an event in your system saying bandwidth exceeded on this monitor for this device, and you're going to want to know what to do with that. And so what you want to do then is, in that case, go into something like the traffic flow endpoints. And typically you will see the ports that are most being used are at the top here. The ports are devices, and so you can drill into that if you want to. And I think that's not a simulator there. But you can quickly see over time here in the endpoints, over the last hour and 1 minute detail, you can see the particular endpoints for that particular device in IP address. And so you can also, if you're more interested in more protocol or conversations, you can drill into conversations for that particular node. It might help you decide, which endpoints or which nodes are consuming your or responsible for your bandwidth threshold exceeded on your performance monitor. One final one that might be of interest is maybe intrusion detection. If you've got traffic flow being sent from a firewall type device, you will be able to track things such as senders. And so if you start seeing a sender that's outside your network, maybe the internet, and you see a lot of traffic being sent in from some location, it could be a DOS attack or something else, but you would be able to drill into that like any other portlet here and maybe drill in and see what's going on in terms of that traffic, where it's coming from. And again, you can change and find the endpoints and that sort of thing to help decide if this is really an intrusion detection, is something going on is legitimate or not. Okay, that was a very quick run through on our traffic flow analyzer. I hope that was helpful. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I will terminate the recorded session of this, and we will move on to the Q&A session. Thanks everyone for joining.